meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Fort Clinton City Council meeting of October 2022, or October 22, 2024 at Fort Clinton City Hall and the Linda Hartlaub Chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, a moment of reflection for those serving the
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please call the roll.
Beth Gilman.
Present.
Margaret Phillips.
Present.
Richard Morgan.
I'm here.
Avery Robinson.
Present.
Pat Hovis. Here. Jerry Trolley.
Here.
Kathy King.
Here. Thank you. Council, you previously received the September 10, 2024 regular meeting minutes that we could not approve at the last meeting as we did not have a quorum. And then more recently received the October 8, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam President, I move for the acceptance of both sets of minutes from the last two meetings.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Trolley. Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, second by Mr. Trolley, to approve the September 10, 2024 regular meeting minutes and the October 8, 2024 regular meeting minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same side. Thank you. Motion carries. The chair notes that certification has been made regarding compliance with the rules and notifications of this meeting. We have a guest presentation this evening. Jeremy Hinty from OHM Advisory, Fort Clinton Recreation Amenities Plan. So, stand where you're at. You can go to the podium if you like.
I'm just going to project them. Oh, 2 seconds.
Best way.
Margaret, could you please shut down the TV?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Does that remote have,
It does not have what your a pointer.
no, to move to the next slide?
I'm going to physically do it.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're fine.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Hinty. I'm a senior project manager and landscape architect with OHM Advisors. I want to start with saying that I've had the pleasure of getting to know your community over the last year and a half. That's how long this process has been going on. And you know, we're looking at the finished product, which everybody likes to see. What do you get? And this is our report. So bringing everything together, look how thick it is. This is printed double-sided. It's 200 pages of information. I'm not going to present 200 pages of information to you today. Otherwise, we'll be here for the next 4 hours. The other thing I do is when I do like to talk about our projects, I can talk for as long or as little as you like. So I will preface this with saying that this can be a conversation. And if you have questions throughout the discussion, please feel free to throw your hand up, stop me, say, hey, what about this or what about this? But what I'm trying to do is take all this information and put it into a CliffsNote version, which is what is in front of you. So what we have in front of you on the hard copies is the exact same thing that we have on the screen. The other thing I see behind me here is one of the other pivotal people in this project, and that's Jana Wilson with the Park District. So I don't know if I'll call on her and put her on the spot, but I might, depending on what some of your questions are. So I'm glad she was able to come here and show up. So why don't you go to the next one?
Yeah. Just a second. Trying to figure it out. There we go.
Sure. So a little bit about what we're going to talk to today is we're going to talk a little bit about the planning process, kind of what our overview is. A little bit about public engagement. So the plan itself is based on public engagement. That's what's really directing our findings. And then we'll get into the fun stuff and talk about the final recommendations, kind of what you see in front of you, and then what are some of those next steps. Go ahead. You're going backwards. I like it though.
Not too. Just a moment. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
I don't know what just happened. Okay.
All right, so we'll talk about the process overview, so go ahead to the next slide. unfortunately, you're taking all the control away from me, which is good and bad.
I don't know why this.
Because I am a controlling person, but so the one thing is, we want to talk a little bit about why do we do these studies. So that's the first thing we look at and we try to define at the beginning. So three main points to consider here. The first one is really we want to create a plan that's based on public engagement to develop trust, collaboration, and vision. It's the most important thing. The second thing is we want to create a plan that maximizes our current facilities and only proposes new amenities where they're needed. So we want to be very thoughtful with our decisions and not just assume everything is a blank slate and start from scratch. The last one, and most important one, is we want to build a plan that's successful for funding and implementation. Basically, a lot of folks ask me, why do we do master plans? And the answer is dollars. So in order for us to start going after implementation dollars, whether it's state, whether it's federal, we need to have a robust plan in place that when we go to those organizations, we can show that we've done a thorough public engagement and that this plan is based on what the community wants. So the other thing that's in here is there's all of our engagement data as well as the actual sign-in sheets. That's how detailed we have to get with these plans. You can go on to the next one. For us, we have three main things that go into our planning process. The one thing we do say when we come to every community is we don't consider ourselves your community expert. We're not community experts. You guys, as in the city of Port Clinton, is the experts. So that's where we lean on that public input. We're looking at the existing context, and then we are expertise in landscape architecture, planning, engineering, etc., which is the best practices. Pull all those three things together, and that's what creates our master plan. Go ahead. So the other thing I like to do when I talk to the public is we talk to them about what is our process. This is actually our contract. So this was what we were contracted to do. And we always talk about it in this way, so we can be as transparent as possible. So a lot of folks do come up to me and say, what are you actually doing? What is your contract? Well, here's our contract. The first thing we did is we did this phase 1 understanding, where we're kicking off the project, doing a thorough inventory and assessment, and then reviewing some previous planning efforts. The second one is we engage the community. So we have a public open house and an online survey to really start to generate ideas. And then we take that information, start to develop several concepts, look at a preliminary active transportation plan, and then take that back to the public. So at our second rounds, we were looking at ideas. So the first round of engagement is really about what are the opportunities. The second round is what do those opportunities start to look like. Then we wrap all that up into this lovely report, include an implementation plan, and we're at the final report and presentation right now. So I'm going to try to hit on the engagement as high level as I can because it's very detailed, but if you want to go to the next one. So our first thing is we had our public open house. Our public open house and our online survey, we're asking the same questions. So it's always interesting to see what feedback you get in person versus online data. Some of the top items that came out of this was kind of what you can see here: preferred amenities, trails, courts, farmers market pavilion, a stage, splash pads. In general, because we were talking about each park, Lakeview, the existing amenities are pretty extensive and meeting the needs, but there is some opportunities for some updates. Waterworks was identified as the preferred site for a new splash pad amenity. So this is our survey results, and they're somewhat in line. Lakeview and Waterworks preferred locations for splash pad and pickleball courts. New dog park was desired, as well as multi-purpose trails, and then some basic amenities when we talk about seating. The one thing that we have been seeing as a trend in previous master plans over the past 5 years is what I'm going to call the basics are important. And I would say in the last 4 park master plans that I've been a part of, that tends to be a very common theme. And what we mean by basics is we have seating, we have restrooms, we have water fountains, we have benches, we have tables, we have bicycle racks, all those different basic needs for a park. And then the last one, you know, the survey takers were satisfied with the current conditions, but do desire some new and improved options. So at our second engagement sessions, this is where we actually had ideas. So we had a couple concept plans for each park, and we were showcasing it to the public to get a little bit of feedback about what amenity within each of those ideas was preferred. The first one, there's a lot of favor for the dog park to be located at the fire station park versus Portage Park. Those were some of the options we looked at. Pickleball and a walking loop was popular at Lakeview, and at Waterworks, you know, one of the thoughts was talking a little bit about what I'm going to call wayfinding, to where moving the park entrance so it's off of Perry, so it does have a little bit better circulation. And when we look at the site plans, we'll talk a little bit more about details in that. Go back to the next one. And then we showcased all this information to the public with the online survey. There's a desire for a splash pad at Lakeview because the playground is so popular there. Waterfront seating, splash pad, and paths were some of the top 3 amenities at Waterworks. And then, you know, this one actually kind of concluded that the fire station park is really the best location for a dog park. So high level, so FYI, this is bringing 40 pages of information together. So there's more behind this. And I'm going to hit on a little bit of the key findings here. One is that there was widespread support, you know, for the splash pad, the dog park, and the multi-use trail. Those kind of filtered to the top as some of the most desired amenities. And some of the other ones were, you know, the basics, the swing seating, farmer's market pavilion, and then a potential small outdoor stage venue. And then the second one was seasonal tourism and public events. It's important to have the essential elements, including restrooms, maintenance. That goes kind of back to those basics. Community members emphasize the importance of safe pedestrian connections. So that's going to fall to what we call our active transportation plan. And our active transportation plan is any mode of transportation that is not a vehicle. So it could be walking, biking, strolling, skating, scootering, etc. So there was kind of this push to say, all right, look at our parks, look at our local destinations, how do we connect them to the neighborhoods? And that's what the active transportation plan is going to showcase. And then the last thing is the local pride with the waterfront and how important that is, and making sure that it is accessible and that everybody's aware of it. One thing that we felt was important, and we did get a host of public input, is we just pulled this one little caption that we don't hear a lot about. And really, we had a few people specifically come to us and thanked us for the process. And what that really does is that showcases not only you guys as council, but the administration for putting this type of effort forward. And we saw a handful of comments coming out relating to that, and that's a very good thing. So now, we're going to look at our recommendations. And you don't need to see this in detail, but I'll walk you through it just to showcase it. So what we did for each of the parks is we bring everything together into a couple synopsis with the existing conditions on the left, talking about what are the limits of the park, what's happening there. And then we actually do an inventory and assessment of all of the features on the right. So we're looking at some of the design and usage, access and visibility, some of the existing structures there, restroom buildings, pavilions, etc. And then, for the most part, site furnishings. You can go to the next one. Then kind of looking at site amenities, and of course, like your guys' screen is so tiny.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to get it
It's
bigger.
okay. But some of the main conclusions that came out of here is for Waterworks, how do we better balance our passive and active recreation? So right now there's the ball field, there's the play area. How do we create better walking paths? How do we have an accessible access to the beach? So that's one thing we didn't really identify in our initial inventory, is we couldn't find an accessible entrance. So again, these are our conclusions. Site vehicular circulation and parking is a little bit unorganized and insufficient from a directional standpoint, so it's confusing as to where do I go, how do I get there, how do I get through it. And then, the nice thing is with this one, a lot of those site basic amenities are in really good shape. So there's not a whole lot to do on that side. Then we have our overview of recommendations, which I'm not going to go through, but we are going to talk about the site plan itself. So why don't you go on to the next slide, please? Oh boy. Screen is so small. So the first thing we were looking at is how do we create better circulation while creating a defined space for events. So as we all know, there's a very large event that happens at this park that is a huge driver. I've heard from both sides of the aisle on that. Folks that love the event to folks that struggle because the community gets a little bit busy, it's hard to cross the street, it's hard to access the event. But one thing we did want to say is the design of this space needs to be what's the best condition for the residents of Port Clinton. So we always say don't design for Black Friday. That's kind of a good general rule. So don't design for one event a year. So you do want to take that into consideration, but we need to take everything into consideration. So the main thing we did here is the parking lot is big, it's expansive, but how can we just reorganize it a little bit? And that's kind of what's done here. There's a slight expansion of the parking into the park, but we take a little bit of some of the existing areas to redistribute that and create this central lawn space. The central lawn space is formed by the entry drive in the middle of the site. The intention with that entry drive is the terminus is some type of beach house or vertical structure. So that starts to add with the wayfinding. So when you come by the park, there's the big structure, that's where I need to go to get into the park and to go around. And then use this form to create that open lawn area. The beach, as you guys know, is the destination here. It's the reason you're going to want to go here. Show of hands, has anybody ever visited Edgewater Beach area in Cleveland? So think of something like that. They have a big, beautiful beach house, concessions, restrooms. That one has a bar in it. So, and it reminded me when we first looked at this, that was a great precedent example. But the other thing we did talk about with this, what are some of those desired amenities that wanted to happen in Waterworks Park? And the other main ones was a splash pad and the pickleball courts. Now the question is, where do we start to arrange those amenities? They are on the active side. So the conversation led to put it on the southwest side, so A, it's a little bit more visible. Now the other thing that came with that is, if you know now, there is a relatively aged parking playground right up against the sidewalk. Typically we don't like putting sidewalks that close to such a busy street. So the suggestion is use the pickleball courts to create a separation from those users, from those children users, to the vehicular. So we're giving a little bit more space and frontage with the park. Obviously this takes out the ball field, which in all the folks I talked to, I didn't get a lot of, everyone felt it was a great idea, they felt it was a little underutilized. So that's just some of the feedback we had on that one. And then simplifying the pedestrian connections. So we're really trying to create these walking loops that allow you to get around and make those clean connections to go to one side of the park or to the other side of the park. The last thing is maintaining a smaller parking area on the east side of the beach house. This is what we're really calling the lighthouse parking area, so you're still able to access the historic nature and the historic features that are already happening. And then the third thing that you'll see in the active transportation plan is some type of connection pretty much across city limits on Perry Street from the east side to the west side. For the most part, we have to stay in the right-of-way. Here's one where that trail could come into the park a little bit, and that's what you see on that south side. So before I continue, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
The parking, I'm trying to figure out how you're doubling the number of parking places there. Is the parking lot on the west, is that getting significantly wider?
It's barely getting wider, like 10 feet.
how do you go from, I can't read these, from 170 something to 207, I can't read those numbers, but how are you making, I'm not doubting it, I'm just trying to figure, is that because of the extra ones by the White House, or? It seems like a lot of extra spaces, which I think is a good thing.
So, and I'd have to double check. Nope, wrong part.
And I assume we have two, we keep both entrances, the one off Jefferson and the one off Washington, correct?
So what's happening is we are going from 217 to 345, so we're adding 100, but that's because we couldn't quantify the amount of, just there's some open gravel areas where we know parking happens during events, but we can't quantify that
Okay.
because there's no logical circulation for it.
Yeah,
It
it's
just
kind of a mess. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, we feel this is probably closer to a wash when you look at kind of how things broke down for those events. But the intention with that main parking on the left is to utilize the footprint of everything that's there and organize that circulation. The other thing we did do is we did add more parking towards what I'm going to call the nose of the park. One thing that folks like to do is they do like to drive to the park and be able to stare at the lake. We're doing a lot of work in the city of Huron right now, where that's kind of what they're asking for. We were on the design team for Jackson Street Pier. If you've ever been there, everybody just pulls up and just stares at the lake. So that's kind of why it's shaped that way too, so it has that curve, so you kind of have a little bit of opportunities there. Good question. Anything else? I started with the prominent park. The other ones are going to be less and less.
What was the reason to choose Waterworks over Lakeview for the splash pad? I'm just curious.
So technically, the plan is showing a splash pad at both,
Okay.
just a more prominent one here.
Okay.
So we can keep going, and if there's any questions, circle back. If we need to go to the bar after this and have a couple of drinks, we can do that. That's okay. No problems there.
You buying?
I do have a company card, so I can swing that. So looking at Lakeview Park, again, we're looking at the existing conditions. Doing our inventory assessment, I'm not going to go through everything. So why don't you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I can't read that. You're having the same problem, too.
Yeah.
So the conclusions on here are really what we're seeing as designers looking at the space. And I'm not going to go into a lot of this. You know, I think one of the big things that jumped out at us with this one is the amount of vehicle intrusion into the park. So right now there's parking and an entry drive coming from both sides, and it's a little bit hard of a balance to say if this is more of a public square, public park type of space, maybe we should give a little bit back to the pedestrian use from that. So that's kind of the main expression that happened with this design. So why don't you go to the next one, we'll talk a little bit about the concept. So the one sought after feature within this park that is wildly successful is the playground. Fully accessible playground, poured in place rubber surface. It's a great amenity. So we don't want to change that. The main thing we're changing here is taking out the parking on the west side, incorporating pickleball courts next to the basketball courts. So typically we like to bring our courts together just for efficiency in construction. And then a small splash pad adjacent to the play area. The other thing that folks really identified with this park was the mature trees and just being able to enjoy the green space. So there is a series of walks that go around it, but they don't actually continue. So you'll see on the bottom half, we're actually just putting in a loop path that allows folks to do a lap around it. I think it's 1/8 of a mile if you walk around the park on this. I think we double check that. So then, you know, that's something if we want to put signage up so people know how far a lap is to go around, you could. Yes, I can just stay with you guys here.
I have another parking question. I don't know why I'm on parking on the side. But you're getting rid of you're keeping the existing parking lot that's next to the playground, correct?
On the east side, correct.
Yeah. Okay, and I noticed on the east side, those parking are angled the wrong way. It's a one-way street there. Is it gonna change to two-way, or you just
So the on-street parking that we're showing,
Yeah, on the east side there.
Mhm. yeah, we're showing that as on-street angled parking.
Okay, so it's got to angle the other way. You're not talking about changing the street, because right now the street's one way north.
Yeah, so the discussion there is it's angled back-in parking. So that's a newer idea, it's actually safer. So most folks struggle with that because basically when you're backing out of a space, you cannot see a car until you're already halfway out into the street. So the mentality behind it is if you back in first, when you pull out, you're gonna see that car before you're into the street.
Other communities doing that now?
Oh yeah,
Is it really?
yeah. Some are doing it more on a test basis, and then there's a lot of signage that goes into it just from an educational thing. And that varies, you know.
My wife can't back up.
Shut the
I'm gonna be honest here, it's her birthday today too.
Is she here?
No.
Jerry, your wife's on the phone.
Thanks. Here.
But I noticed Shelley did that with the road on the east, not the one on the west. That's straight in, so
Yeah,
your wife can park there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the reason is what the intention of, and again, remember, this is a planning effort, we're not into
Right.
design. It's to get people to start thinking about it. So like when we get to the design of this, it doesn't mean, like that's a decision that happens during the design, but we want to show the options just to get communities to start thinking about it.
One more question, then
Yeah.
I'll be done here. When you say a small splash pad, I have no concept of how big that thing is. Is it bigger than this room?
It's about the size of this room.
Okay.
That's small.
Yeah, that's small.
And do I have the concept of splash pad right, where you have fountains and stuff like that?
It can be a whole lot of different things. The main thing with a splash pad, the definition of it, is some type of series of spray features where you have zero depth water. So the whole point of the zero depth water is you do not need a lifeguard versus if you had anything with depth to it.
Is that water recycled?
It can be. So I will gladly talk to you about splash pad design because I geek out on design. There's two systems for splash pads. There's the first one, what's called a water to waste, where it literally goes into the sewer drain and out. Communities that own their own water utility tend to do that because they don't pay for water. Other communities that know, all right, if I'm pushing thousands of gallons of water a minute and it's just being a waste, we can't afford that. Then you do a recirculating system. Gas pumps, filters,
And
chemicals.
that's a decision that can be made. This is a concept, so that is.
Correct.
Fine, okay, good.
Yeah, so basically what this does is it creates that concept plan and then provides cost information, high level, for those amenities. The next step, and we'll talk about it when we get to the implementation, is there would have to be a design phase for any of these features to figure out what exactly they look like.
This is concept, not design.
Oh yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah,
That makes sense.
sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, move on to the next one. They're gonna get fewer and fewer to talk about as the parks kind of get smaller and smaller as we go on. But that doesn't mean they're less important. So I will be honest, this is probably my favorite park, is Portage. And the reason is that picture you saw at the beginning has that giant mound. We, in our office, call it a BAM, big ass mound. And we don't, like, it's Ohio, so it's hard to find those mounds. But when we came to this site, our one employee just went running up there, and her picture is the one where she's doing this. It's a lot of fun. One is, as you guys know, in Ohio, it's hard to create winter interest in your parks and make it usable. That's a great one for it. So again, we looked at the existing conditions, gave our inventory and assessment. You can go on to the next slide. Some of our conclusions for what we saw, some of the recommendations, and then let's look at the plan really quick. So this one, there is a healthy contingent of a soccer youth group here. So at all the public meetings, I didn't get bombarded, but several of the soccer folks that are leading those efforts, approached us and really wanted to talk about this park, which was great. I was happy that they have that passion. So right now soccer is happening there. The intention isn't to change that; it's to enhance it. So widen the parking lot a little bit. So right now it's It's a little confusing. You can almost get in 3 rows. What this does is just push it down about 15 feet in order to get in those 3 rows. Maintain the playground, add some type of walking loop that gets us around the park, and maybe a potential connection to the pond. So, one thing that we do like to talk about is we do have these, water features. It is human nature to want to be by water, and it's the reason your community does so well. And it's such a destination during the summer for people like me that can't experience the lakefronts. So that's the kind of intention with getting that around the pond. Not touching the BAM, so we're keeping the BAM intact, so it's still a sled hill, so we don't really want to get into that. And then adding, the one thing that the soccer folks really struggled with is having some type of utility shed that they can just kind of store equipment. That's being shown just north of the existing pavilion on the east side. The path on this one is a little bit larger, mainly because there's a gas well at the bottom. And I always tell folks, don't get scared on gas wells. They're everywhere. Some work, some don't work, but we can still work around them. I've worked on a few other parks where there's a very lovely gas well smack dab in the middle. This one's at least in the back of the house.
Okay, being a soccer idiot, I coach cross country, so I didn't like soccer because they took all my athletes. But I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 soccer fields of different sizes for different ages. Is that the concept?
Correct.
Little kids need little ones and bigger kids.
Yep.
None of these are a full-size soccer field, are they?
Correct. The closest one is the one in the middle that is actually going the wrong way because there's not enough room. So proper field orientation is technically north-south. But when we're looking at just practice fields for rec leagues, the smaller kids, they don't, it doesn't need to be a perfect condition. Now the other thing is, for athletic fields that are like soccer, this shows what can happen within it. This is just painted lines out on the lawn area.
Yeah.
So the idea is do some drainage improvements, add a couple catch basins, and then that park has a little bit more playability for soccer if the demand keeps growing. If the demand doesn't grow, it can be left to just open lawn area. And there is a value on open lawn area. I have worked with some communities that want to program everything, and we have to tell them, take a step back. And you want that open lawn space that could be for throwing a frisbee, sunbathing, reading a book. A lot of folks start to forget about that basic desire.
So again, it's a concept. We could have 3 there.
Yeah. I mean, we looked at,
like you said, it's just paint.
For this one, the intention is maintain the open fields as soccer fields. And then all this does is show the soccer guys what youth fields they could get in that's the most layout efficient. Anything else before we go on? Okay. So I think Fire Station Park, we're going to have to think of a better name for that. It's kind of contingent. The dog park.
Oh my gosh, it's a big fire hydrant.
Not going to lie, that would be a lot of fun. So Fire Station Park is the small, weird, triangular piece of land under the power lines but next to the old fire station. So we went out there, did our existing conditions, did our assessment inventory, and you can go on to the next one. Oh, you're good. And basically the question was, all right, how could we get a proper dog park in here? And again, concept level, not super detailed. So typically with dog park design is you do try to break it up into 2 areas, one for the smaller dogs and one for the larger dogs, which is what's shown here. The orange is the larger dogs, the yellow is the smaller. And then we would have some type of proper entry that has the proper gates for all of those things to happen. And then there is a desire to make a pedestrian connection to the north through the existing utility easements. So we have those power lines overhead. How can we leverage that existing easement to get a trail that connects to the neighborhoods to the north? Add a little bit of parking there, so we kind of have that. Most dog parks that we tend to see tend to be a destination you drive to. I don't know why that is, it's just that tends to be the way it is. So that's why we want to make sure that we do have the adequate parking to at least bring that accommodation to them. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The tough part with dog parks is it's a lot of fencing. Fencing's expensive, so it's still a pretty healthy investment. Questions? I can talk about dog park design too.
No, I like Hydrant Park.
Yeah, that is a cool one.
My only question is, not going to dog parks, it butts right up against the fountains. Is a dog park a noisy thing? I mean,
Typically not, because it's only used during the day. Like we don't see, I would say,
No more noisy than Amtrak or trains going by.
yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the one on Marblehead, and when I go, it doesn't seem, there's a lot of dogs, but it doesn't seem like on a park.
Fire sirens coming and
Yeah,
going.
yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, the biggest one, there's one in the Rocky River Reservation in the city of Lakewood, and anytime I go by that dog park, there's probably like 40 dogs in there. I don't know how it works, but no, they're typically not that noisy.
I don't care, I'm just wondering, predicting complaints, that's all, or reactions.
No. It's a very fair question. And then the other thing is, one thing we do want to stress is dog park size. So the orange area is 1.3 acres, which is about 3/4 the size of a football field. Football field is 2 acres. And then the small dog park is a little more than a half an acre. So that's actually a good thing. A lot of folks try to put dog parks in an area that's twice the size of this room, and it's a maintenance nightmare. So folks will ask us, how do we deal with maintenance? And it's bigger is better. One of the biggest dog parks I've seen is in Wadsworth. I think it's 3 acres, and you don't see any maintenance conditions because there's so much room for the dogs to fan out. Anything else before we move on? Cool. So the next thing we want to talk about, and I'll try to be brief as I can again, because this is very enjoyable. I love my job. I can talk about this all night. So it's really fun to be able to create amenities like this that are a positive impact on our communities. So the last thing we wanted to talk about is the active transportation plan. And what does that look like? So there's a few steps that go into the active transportation plan. It's not just us throwing our thumb in the air and saying, yep, it should go here, it should go there. The first thing we look at is we're evaluating some of the existing active transportation planning efforts. The second thing we look at is identifying key points of interest and potential connections, so parks as well as neighborhood amenities. And then we start to identify what is the most desired active transportation corridors. So what are the main features that we really want to connect? And then we actually look at those corridors and do an evaluation with what, we have a active transportation matrix. It gets very detailed very fast. That tells us which side of the road it should go on, why it should go there. It's basically utilizing some of the features that impact trail design. And then you can go to the next one. It should be the plan. So here's the proposed active transportation plan. For the most part, it follows the county trails plan with some type of main spine going east-west. The areas in blue are roadways that we could actually go out and put in a trail within the public right-of-way right now. The areas in red are segments where there's simply not enough room or it's not economical to do that, which means it would have to be a combination of sidewalks and maybe bike lanes or sidewalks and shared pavements. So that's kind of what we're trying to differentiate at this level. The next step is, let's say we want to start implementing, we would pick a specific corridor, look at it in more detail. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the main northwest spine. That's how do we get to our downtown region and our main park to the south end of the community. And luckily, on Jefferson, there's enough room, it connects to the school, it's just kind of a no-brainer. And then the other thing that's shown in the county plan is the segment that shoots off to the southeast. So we want to really try to use 4th Street to make that connection to get over to that one. Questions? Unfortunately, I can give a 40-minute presentation on just active transportation, everything goes in it. She's heard it. So, but we won't go into that. So next steps, and if you want to go to the last one. So we're at the finish line here. And you can go to the next slide. So what we do is we actually bring everything together in this matrix, this implementation matrix, and it's prioritized. So we're looking at the key recommendations. The prioritization of this is based on the amount of public feedback we got within each of these amenities. So the first one is a community splash pad, second one is the pickleball courts, and the third one is the dog park. So those are the top 3 desired amenities that came out of all of our engagement. Then we have, what location it could happen, what's that priority, high, medium, low, and then our potential funding sources, and a little bit of an explanation about what that funding source can provide. And if you go to the next page, or slide, this actually breaks down all of the different funding opportunities for parks. So a lot of folks just fall back on NatureWorks. There is a lot more opportunities than just NatureWorks. I can go into all of them in detail, but that might be beer number 3 later, just because this gets pretty lengthy pretty quick. I think that's it. I think we're at the finish. Unless you guys want me to back up.
Did I miss something? I'm looking at the, had the new multi-use pavilion with plaza adjacent to Jefferson Street.
So that's in the southwest corner of Waterworks Park.
Okay.
So there was identified for some type of pavilion. Maybe it's like a 4 Seasons pavilion that you could have a farmer's market. It could be seasonal, kind of like Jackson Street Pier.
Right.
And that was identified at the southwest corner, the existing entry to the park. And the whole purpose of that was it could be that connection between the park and the downtown area. Because right now it's, you have the little road and there's not a lot that really brings you back and forth. Where that could be that feature that makes that connection.
We've got water tanks under there, don't we, in that corner?
Yep. We sure do.
All right, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about the engagement and how the amount of surveys you received here in the Port Clinton area compared to other communities that have completed their parks plan?
Yeah, so from an engagement standpoint, every community is a little bit different. Some are better than others. We've worked with some relatively large communities where we learned the hard way that the in-person stuff isn't working, so we have to fall back to the online stuff. Depending on how long of a process we're going, and we went pretty lengthy, we had really good turnout when it came to both engagement sessions. The public meetings were between 25 and 50 people, which is pretty good because the second one was on a Monday, and sometimes that can be a struggle for folks. I don't know why, but Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays tend to be, folks will come to that. The other thing is, the online survey was very accessible. It wasn't too lengthy to take, and I think we got on the first one a couple hundred, which is really good for a community of your size. And on the second one, I think we got 300 or 400. I'd have to go back and look. But when we looked at the percentages of how big the community is, that's pretty meaningful. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. Does that tell you any more? Does it say that people are engaged more here in town, or does it say they want to see this happen? Is there anything you can extrapolate from that from your experience?
Yeah, so the main thing we can extrapolate from that is one thing is the way we set up our surveys is we try to avoid open-ended questions as much as we can so we can tabulate the data and it shows a clear picture. But we still always have to have that open-ended question just to allow the sounding board to be the sounding board. And one thing is that's actually the best part. When you see some of the comments roll in, some of them are off the wall, and it kind of goes back to that original thing I was saying. A lot of comments were just commending the process, and that's just an exemplary on you guys for doing this effort first. It's easy just to say, all right, let's go do stuff. Like, I'm gonna go build a playground, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But if you don't have community buy-in and you don't have something to fall back on, it's a little bit of a tougher conversation. Here, you can say, all right, we did this lengthy engagement, we got all this feedback, this is why we're doing it, so it's justified. And that's the most important part. Does that answer you?
Thank you.
You can talk more if you want.
Anybody else on council, any questions?
Madam President, I know at least one person in the audience wants to talk, maybe others do too.
I actually can ask it afterward. It was just a very simple
She's gonna
question.
corner me, isn't she?
Yes, I
Oh,
yeah. Thank you though, David.
Sure.
Madam President, can I just offer a couple of comments? Jeremy, thanks for doing the presentation. Thanks to the Park District for helping fund actually more of the lion's share of the project cost of this than the city did, so thank you. And please thank your board again. Council, we have on the agenda tonight Resolution 2410, which we'd ask you to take it up at least for its first reading tonight. It calls for a couple different things. It calls for basically adopting and endorsing the plan that is put before you here. It was provided via an email link, I believe, 1 week ago. Today, hopefully you've had time to review it. We've reviewed it here as well. That this would be the guide for future development going forward when it comes to park improvements throughout the city. So a guide, like Jeremy said, conceptual, not final design, right? But give us the authorization and direction to pursue this as much as we can, determine what funding might be available, any permits that might be out there. And then most notably, Section 4 of the resolution gives everybody back here and other people, including city staff, authorization and direction to prepare specifications for the construction of the proposed Waterworks Park splash pad that was presented to you tonight in the presentation, but also in the full plan that was provided last week. So I'm happy to answer any questions when this comes up on the agenda, or if Jeremy's here now and folks of interest are in the audience, we're happy to entertain any comments or questions that you have.
Mrs. King?
Thank you, Madam.
So, I mean, I'm just a little lost on the, I don't know, maybe it's just my opinion that I would rather have the splash pad, like, not be in Waterworks, because, I feel like it would be more of a community there. So, like, if we have it in Waterworks, does that mean we're not gonna have it in, like, 'cause
There's-
this had it in both places in the plan.
Yeah, there's nothing that would prohibit us pursuing both, council so correct.
And the Lakeview one could be at the next phase or whatever, correct? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I just feel like that would be more for this.
Yeah, the only thing I can respond to on that is the engagement kind of express, or what we came out of that. And again, this is just us with data, we're not making anything up, is there was a greater desire to have it at Waterworks versus Lakewood. There was still a desire to have it there, but there was just a greater desire to have, like, maybe a larger, more prominent one there. Or Lakeview, just because of the size of it, the capacity of it, it could be a smaller one.
Okay, I mean, I guess, like, I just say it like, the lake is already at Waterworks Park, you know what I mean? Too, so like, that's the one provision that I'm not sure.
But if you live in Beth's ward, Lakeview Park's quite a hike, whereas Waterworks is much closer.
It's right across the street.
No.
They're not that far. It's
Not a
like,
mile.
yeah,
It's a bit of a hike.
I mean, I guess if you're walking, yes, but,
And most kids.
okay.
And we do have City Beach at Lakeview too. I just appreciate the data, how they came about it, and I like, we do the studies to get that, because sometimes I think things like, I'd like to see like 6 pickleball courts, but you gotta do what you can do.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, everything has to pass this tonight.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes
There's
it.
not
I
a
think-
request, there's not
No.
a request for any expedited.
No, just 3 reads.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, and.
Okay, as long as we have 3 reads, then I'm fine. I just, I needed more time to digest it
Oh,
before
yeah.
I read.
Sure.
Okay. That
And
was-
it's a starting point. I think, like they said, we can have, the concept says too, maybe we can get one in Lakeview Park as well. There's nothing says we can't. Just a
From what
kickoff point.
people, I guess my take on it is from people that did the surveys, they prefer one at Waterworks Park.
Okay.
So-
If I could add something,
Yes.
Madam President, we actually do have a current grant application in for a NatureWorks grant for a splash pad at Lakeview.
Okay.
There you go.
You have pretty good
Thank
chances.
you. I mean, I just feel like it's more of a neighborhood park.
I understand,
Yeah,
I
that
can,
makes
I can
sense.
see advantage to
Yeah.
both, I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, put one each place. I mean, the nice thing about Lakeview, you got that playground there, so, of course, we're talking about having a playground at Waterworks too, so, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
That was my other question.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay. Well, thank you for your presentation
You're very
and all
welcome.
your hard work and putting everything together. You all are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you need to go, I understand. Yeah, no.
Not you.
Yes.
The presentation.
See?
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. So, do we have any public comment? Thank you. We'll move on to executive officer report. As Mr. Belo indicated, we have a new resolution 24-10, which deals with the presentation. And Mr. Belo explained the ins and outs of it. And this can go for 3 readings, and it will not be assigned to a committee. And when we have the first reading, if anyone has questions, additional questions, they can ask Mr. Belo. Also, Ms. Sosaber has asked that if you want to attend the chamber gala, please RSVP to her by October 31st to attend. If you, the city will pay for your ticket, the council's ticket. If you would like your spouse to attend or a guest with you, you will need to contact the chamber and make their reservations, and you'll be responsible for that one. Also, this before the meeting this evening, we swore in Avery Robinson as Ward 4, so I'd like to welcome them.
Thanks for the warm welcome, everyone.
So, and that is all that I have. And we'll move on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of council. You thought Jeremy's report was long. Jeremy, again, thank you very much for all the time and effort and energy that you and your organization put into this. And you were in town quite a bit, meeting with lots of folks, so Yeah, it's a appreciate pleasure. this. This is a true reflection of what the community wants, and we'll try to do what we can to make it happen. And thanks to Mr. Belo and his staff for getting all this organized and getting it moving. Avery as well, welcome. I hope you know what you're getting yourself into. Again, we extended an offer, Mr. Colson and I, to take him on the tour of the city, take him to all the hot spots like the sewage treatment plant, and the city garage and all that fun
The
stuff.
fun places.
All the fun places. Well, folks, yesterday afternoon I had the opportunity to head out to Camp Perry. They had a groundbreaking ceremony for a readiness center, a new readiness center. That's the fancy new term for a new armory that they're building out there. Just as you enter the facility on your right is the Red Horse. Just beyond that, for those who've been around a long time, it's where the Par 3 golf course used to be. It's not a new unit that's being created in the Ohio National Guard. It's a unit that has 2 different locations right now, and they've outgrown their space. This new facility will have 20 full-time employees and in excess of 300 folks training once a month out there. So it's a great economic stimulus to our community. We always think about tourism, but this is one of the things that brings that year-round component and economic drive to our community. About 18 months for completion of construction. It also allows this unit to have ready access to the firing ranges out there. The unit that's moving in there, and I feel like me, I can't remember the name of the unit or the number. One of their headquarters is in Sandusky, the other is somewhere else. They've been around since before the Civil War, so there's 5 or 6 members of this unit over the history that have won the Congressional Medal of Honor, so it's a neat thing. It shows the commitment that the state of Ohio has to Camp Perry, which was created in 1906. So it's a neat thing to have come to the greater Port Clinton area. Just a quick update on the forward-looking infrastructure project. Earlier this morning, many of us in this corner of the room participated in the bi-weekly conference call we had with our contractors and engineers and so forth. Plan B, the below ground stuff, that paperwork and process is right on track for our bidding schedule. Plan A, the above ground stuff, Plan A Phase 1, which is currently going on. Again, Mother Nature has said, hey, we want to see this happen too, and has been very, very good to us. The contractors and engineers both agree that they were pleasantly surprised, I think we were as well, as to the general condition. Our big fear was that we'd start scraping stuff off and look at these things and go, oh my God, what did we get ourselves into? We kind of have a little bit of a situation out on Lee. This first phase altogether had a $500,000 contingency plan for those oh shoot moments. Right now we're looking at about $200,000 of costs to get Lee back up. It's interesting to me, we talk about the numbers and so forth. When the engineers looked at all our roads and did what the engineers do, I mentioned this before, they saw that West Perry Street by the art garage was, in their numbers world, the worst street in Port Clinton. When the folks from Erie Blacktop got out to Lee Avenue and started doing what they're doing, they didn't only agree that it's the worst street in Port Clinton, it's the worst street they've ever seen anywhere in their long world of doing this. So again, Flip is right on track. It's good to see. Moving on, you may have seen a lot of activity out at the Barry's Bagel Building, and I know that's outside the city limits, out on 163 and 53, but the owners of that building donated it to the Catawba Island Fire Department and the Port Clinton Fire Department for training purposes. They've had 3 joint training exercises out there. They'll have a couple more over the next couple of weeks. They rotate between Mondays and Tuesdays because the different departments meet at different times. So if you see folks out there, that's what's going to happen. Eventually that building will be raised after they beat the hell out of it, and something is going out there, but I don't know what. Along the same lines of the fire department, the other day, the acting fire chief, Brian Gutman, signed an auto aid agreement with the Danbury Township Fire Department. We've all heard of mutual aid agreements where you're out on a call and you physically radio back and say, hey, we need more help, call so-and-so. Well, this is an automatic agreement. If there's a structure fire in Danbury Township, Port Clinton is going to be toned automatically. Likewise, if there's a structure fire in Port Clinton's jurisdiction, Danbury Township Fire will be called to that mutual aid automatically. And since we're on the topic of Feather Party, or on the topic of fire department, the Port Clinton Firefighters Association Feather Party, which has been going on for eons, will be on November 9th, Saturday, November 9th. The doors open at 6 p.m. with the first spin at 6:30. If you've never been to a feather party, ask someone what it is. They'll be happy to explain it to you. It's just fun. It's basically gambling for food, and there's other raffles, and there'll be football games and all that fun stuff. Great family event. It is free to attend, ample parking. There is a raffle that members of the Firefighters Association are selling raffle tickets to. They're $1 each, 6 for $5, and as Mr. Trolley reminded me, I was dumb enough to leave mine on my office desk, so I didn't bring them tonight, but there's plenty of time to get those. Those folks listening on the interweb here over the next couple days, maybe up to a week, as they come to the city-county building, be mindful that there is parking lot work still underway. It's separate, completely separate from the forward-looking infrastructure project, but just be mindful that you may not be able to park right in front of City Hall. You may have to park down by the courts and walk down, or vice versa. If you're going to the courts, you may have to park by City Hall. Just be mindful of all of that. Quick update on the public restrooms we have out there. Portage Park, as we all know, will be open year-round, as it always has been. The Waterworks Park restroom facility is still open and functioning. Again, Mother Nature has said we want people to enjoy this area. However, Lakeview restroom facility is closed for the season. The brush pickup went very well this past week. They had to carry over a few things to the first part of this week because of the amount of stuff out there. Want to thank the citizens for bringing it out in a timely fashion. We've talked about that for quite some time. Don't put it out 3 weeks in advance. That was the last scheduled brush pickup for the season, unless there's a storm, and then we'll notify everyone through proper channels. Leaf pickup, that's the next question. When is leaf pickup going to happen? When's leaf pickup going to happen? And the truth is, when the leaves start to fall. There's still a heck of a lot of leaves out there, so the guys in the service department are monitoring that. Anywhere between the first week of November and Thanksgiving week, it'll start and then go until all the leaves are gone. So it'll just be one of those play it by ear type things. And just a friendly reminder, rake the leaves that are going to be picked up to the boulevard. Don't put any sticks or anything in there. Don't rake them out onto the street. And God forbid, if you have a car, don't park your car over top of dry leaves. The fire department will come and visit you. We typically lose one car a year in the community because someone parks on top of a pile of leaves. The citywide cleanup was this past weekend. Again, I want to thank the members of the service department, Port Clinton Police Department for their assistance and the citizens. It seems as if we've got a system worked out here at the parking lot. It seems to flow very well. There was not a huge backup at any one given time. It will bring it back around in the springtime, thanks to Republic Services for their participation as well. Port Clinton Kiwanis Club, which I'm a proud member, is having our annual Evening at the Races event. That would be at the Elks Lodge on November 1st. Doors open at 6. It's a fun event. 21 and over for that one. It's our Kiwanis Club's biggest fundraiser of the year, basically wagering on pre-recorded horse races, and it's great to watch folks yell at a videotape of a race that happened 30 years ago. It's all done at random. It's all a good time. Tickets for that event are $25. See me or any other Kiwanis member. There are still some opportunities for sponsorships. We sell horses. There are 10 races, 10 horses per race. If you'd like to buy a horse, if your horse wins, you win some money. There's a Grand Champions race. Again, another one of those ways to keep everybody engaged. See me on all that fun stuff. Trick or treat. There's a whole bunch of opportunities to get dressed up, and the kids that were in the room just left, but that's okay. Downtown Trick or Treat will be on Saturday the 26th from 1 to 3. That's Saturday the 26th from 1 to 3. The Spooktacular at Port Clinton High School, it'll be a trunk or treat type event, will be on Wednesday the 30th from 6 to 7 p.m. That's for elementary age children and younger. And then the neighborhood trick or treat will be on Thursday the 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. And members of the Port Clinton Fire and Rescue Department, as well as members of the Port Clinton Police Department, will be in various locations around town passing out candy and treats. So unless anyone has any questions, Madam President, that concludes my report. Mr. Tiroli, how did I know?
I have a couple. Well, one's a question, one's a statement. The leaf pickup may start earlier than you guys think because of the dry weather we had. It has affected the trees immensely, and they're already dropping leaves quite a bit.
Jerry, you're next, right? And you are a master gardener. I don't know if anybody knows that. Is that why we're not seeing a lot of color this year because it's so dry?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The trees are stressed beyond.
Yeah.
Just stressed beyond. But you may start picking up a little sooner than normal.
I'm mowing them up already.
Yeah.
Also, back to the parks. Did we discuss the park down here at all? Was that in the talks at all?
It was, but the size precluded a lot of the stuff that was discussed there. Yeah.
Even the dog park?
It was, I'll say one thing and then Jeremy can play cleanup, I think. It was assessed, given that a dog park would probably be the only eligible improvement to make next to the fire station. And to be a little bit better access, again, through vehicular means, to get out there than at this park here. So I'll just add that. Jeremy.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anybody else have any questions for me? Okay. Auditor's report?
Thank you, Madam President. Council, I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution that's on the agenda tonight. If anyone feels strongly, I hope everyone loves what you saw and gives us all the green light swiftly to move forward on all of these, including the Waterworks Park splash pad next year. Happy to answer any questions today or at any time going forward. I'm sure any of us are willing and able to do the same. The mayor and the safety service director and I have had preliminary discussions about the budget for the next calendar year, fiscal year 2025. I anticipate in November we'll have an ordinance for you and the finance committee to consider, certainly before year end. So look forward to that coming in November, sometime after the election, I'm sure. I believe that is my report. I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments you may have.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Buelow?
I would just like to remind everyone that the cost of fireworks went up again this year. Just saying.
You already had your chances.
Okay, treasurer's report.
All right, our bed tax collections through October 18th here are $333,479.33, which exceeds our expected revenue for the year. Tax collections are $22,603.39, which also exceeds our budget for the year. And finally, our rental registrations are at 62,400, so been a good year. Thank you.
Council have any questions? Mr. Brenner? Law Director is not with us this evening. Mr. Colston, Safety Service Director.
I'm good. Mr. Mayor covered all of it unless there's questions.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Colston? Okay. Move on to city staff reports. Mr. Chrisman, do you have anything this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. Just two quick updates. One, if you've been downtown, you might have seen that there have been some improvements made to the establishments down there. Key Bank has a new coat of paint on it, and they're still in the process of doing some upgrades. The majority of the property owners downtown have been very receptive to the notices of violation and have worked diligently and quickly to make improvements. So I have had some early success with those efforts and plan to continue those efforts and see more success made through that. The other thing is that starting November 14th, so it'll be the Thursday after the first council meeting every month, I will be hosting a public open forum at the Arts Garage at 6 p.m. The intended format for that will be 15 minutes up front for me to put out information from the city or any other pertinent information that we want to get out, and 45 minutes of Q&A open discussion to increase engagement with the community, try to establish some lines of communication that we lack currently. And the people at the Arts Garage have been very gracious and are eager to have us host an event over there and to increase the presence of the community at the Arts Garage.
Which
What was the
Wednesdays
date?
is that? Yeah.
So Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. It'll be every month, the Thursday following the first city council meeting of the month,
I thought you said Wednesday, it's Thursday. Okay.
Thursday. Or the second Thursday of every month, if you want to be easy about it. That's all I have, Madam President.
I have a question for Mr. Christian. Lake Erie Tree Service, how are we proceeding with that?
Edwards Tree Service,
Edwards, sorry.
we have signed an agreement to have them contract for work for hazard mitigation. I'm working with them currently on scheduling. Similar to Erie Blacktop, they have many other jobs going on, so they've requested that they have some flexibility with the scheduling to fit us in the gaps that they have so that they can start as soon as possible, as opposed to delaying until they can fit us into their schedule wholly and then accomplish everything at once. I said that you know, we would be willing to have them come in as they can to address things. So hopefully this week I'll get a better update on the scheduling from them. And as soon as I do, I'll provide that to the tree commission so that you guys can know what's going on.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to committee reports. Finance and Service.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Environment, Public Works, Mr. Trolley.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Safety Services, Ms. Phillips.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Economic and Community Development, Ms. Gill.
Nothing tonight, Madam President.
Okay. Move on to correspondence. Under correspondence, we have the correspondence forwarded from the last meeting as we have a quorum with some additional. But under correspondence, we have Kelly Gingle's letter of resignation as of August 31st, 2024. Ohio Division of Liquor Control, Magic Enterprise, Inc., DBA, Bill's Inn, 1708 East Perry Street, Portland, Ohio. Application for change of corporate stock ownership. Architectural Review Board, July 25, 2024 meeting minutes. Architectural Review Board, September 12, 2024 meeting minutes. Planning Commission, August 22, 2024 meeting minutes. Environment Public Works Committee, August 24, 2024 meeting minutes. Environment Public Works Committee, September 10, 2024 meeting minutes. And the Planning Commission, September 26, 2024 meeting minutes.
Madam President?
Yes.
I move we waive our right to a hearing for the Ohio Division of Liquor Control for Magic Enterprises.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Gilman, second by Mr. Troy, to waive a hearing as to the liquor control permit for Mary G. Enterprises DBA Phil's End. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Margaret Phillips,
Yes.
Avery Robinson,
Yes.
Pat Hovis,
Yes.
Kathy King,
Yes.
Beth Gellman,
Yes.
Richard Morgan,
Yes.
Jerry Trolley.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0, and the hearing is waived by the city. Does council wish to take any further action as to the correspondence?
Madam President, I move we accept all the correspondence as listed here.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Trolley. Any discussion? I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, second by Mr. Trolley to accept the correspondence as stated. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries, and the correspondence is hereby accepted. Move on to readings of ordinances and resolutions. We have no third readings and no second readings. As if we have, under first readings, we have resolution 24-10. Would the clerk please read by title and summary only, resolution 24-10?
Resolution 24-10, a resolution approving and endorsing the Port Clinton Recreation Amenities Plan.
Thank you. Does council wish to take any action as to resolution 24-10? Seeing none, resolution 4-10 will move to a second read at the next regular scheduled council meeting on November 12th, 2024. We will move on to business from the floor. Mr. Morgan.
No, I just say that this is very impressive. First of all, it's a really nice brochure, but everything that went into it, it's very complete, and like I said, I know it's a concept, not a final design, but it seems like you listened to what people said, and you did the best you could do it, and all I have to do is find out how to pay for it, you know, but it is exceptional, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson? Do you have anything this evening? Okay, thank you. Ms. Phillips?
Madam President, I have just a couple things. I was to the Arts Garage last Saturday for the incredible Saturday evening performance where we had a council person right over there, black and white, the whole business, and we also had the lawnmower man over here. He came dressed as a lawnmower man. It was delightful. It was well attended. There were 100 different things that you could look at there, and you could buy anything you wanted if you wished. Mr. Morgan also had something in there from his wife, which was very, very nice. Enjoyed it thoroughly. I really had a good time. The second thing, I'm glad to see what's going on with the cleaning downtown. I've had great comments from people, especially with the Key Bank building, because that was messy looking for a while there. But it's just great to see that we're on the road, and that we also have other houses being repaired, like the one on 2nd Street at Jefferson. And we actually can see the house now. All the greenery is gone. Thank you very much. It's so nice when people do all these things for the benefit of the city. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Harris?
This is really nice. Thank you for the work, everybody that did it. And I went to Playmakers 2 Sundays ago. It was really good. I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
Yeah.
Excellent job. Yeah.
It was very bawdy.
Oh my gosh.
For lack of a better term.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Trolley.
Well, I wasn't gonna say anything, but she brought up Playmakers. My granddaughter's up for Andy. Welcome, Avery. You'll enjoy it. I know I have for 3 terms now. But other than that, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Mrs. King?
I want to thank you for all the work done on the Hearts Plan. I am most excited about the active transportation. Like, I can't wait. Hopefully we can find the funding for that quickly, because that'll be amazing. And yes, welcome Avery. We're really glad to have you on the council. And I wanted to wish everyone a happy Halloween.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman?
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, Avery. And also, the Parks Plan is amazing. I thank you for this presentation. I'm glad it was recorded so we can share it with people throughout the community.
It was recorded?
Yeah, well,
Tell your
you're
lawyer.
on our YouTube channel. So, yeah, you did great. It'll be wonderful. November 3rd is Turn Back Your Clocks. I know the fire department usually reminds us to change the batteries in our smoke detectors then, so I'm just reminding everybody to do that when we fall back. And also November 8th, since we don't have a meeting between now and then, at the Jet Express is going to be a free veterans lunch for veterans throughout the county. hosted by Crown Battery. Bistro's putting it on. It's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you know any veterans, please spread the word. It's a great event. They have a good turnout at it. So that's at the Jet Express at the Island Port. So, nothing else, Madam President.
Thank you. Seeing no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President, I move this August body adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
No. Thank you, Mrs. King.
It's on the ball.
I have a motion by Ms. Phillips, seconded by Mrs. King to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Thank you. We're adjourned.